All right, guys, in this video, we're going to be talking about some of the most common regrets that buyers have when they've purchased a home. And, regrets are going to happen when it's smaller things like choosing the wrong ice cream flavor, no big deal. But when it comes to spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, you want to make sure you do the following things to make sure that you don't have a bad experience and end up with regrets down the road. Let's get into it. Okay, so the number one thing that I hear most people talk about when they've purchased a home, especially with first-time home buyers, is that they will budget for all of the important things, which is something you should be doing, right? You should be budgeting for your mortgage payment, obviously, the cost of utilities, your property taxes, all those things are important. But there is something that happens if you haven't budgeted for, it could put a real damper on your long-term plans, on your, you know, when it comes to financing, right? Budgeting for your retirement or your vacation or whatever it is. So, unexpected sort of maintenance issues can rise up when it comes to your major components of your home. You're talking about your AC, your furnace. It could be an unexpected sort of roof leak because of the direction the wind hits the roof. Nothing major, small things here and there, but these things can happen. Maintenance issues, and then on top of that, maybe you want to put some new light fixtures in. Maybe the flooring isn't working or whatever the case is. Things will happen from time to time that you weren't expecting, and sometimes they end up costing you a lot more than you would have thought for a certain job, right? So I think a number that is kind of safe to work with for whether it's you're buying a brand new house or you live in a home that's a couple of years older, budget about $4,000 to $5,000 a year in maintenance item issues, and then you should be okay. And then there really won't be that big of a shock to like your financial planning going down the road. I mean, I know it doesn't sound like a big amount, but over a period of 5 years, that's like maybe $20,000, right? So this is something that a lot of buyers wish they had kind of planned for ahead of time, so they wouldn't have been caught off guard, and it wouldn't messed with their financial planning. All right. So the second sort of most common regret that people have, buyers, especially first-time home buyers, is that when shopping for a home, they kind of get distracted by the shiny objects, right? So it might be a brand new kitchen or a brand new flooring in a home, brand new washrooms, or just really elaborate light fixtures or whatever it is. They kind of get distracted and they start focusing on the new, the shiny, the thing that kind of attracts attention and makes everything look pleasant, and they kind of overlook the more important thing, which would be the bones, the structure, sort of like the layout of the home. And what I mean by that is, if you have the option of two homes, one that's a little bit older but is in really, really good shape, has been maintained, and has an amazing layout, and then you have a second home for the same price, which is maybe recently renovated, has really nice kitchen and bathrooms, but the layout is really not that functional. It's really not that nice. Sometimes people will say, you know what, let me just kind of go with the new thing because it just feels nicer. It looks nicer. And it doesn't matter if it has a good floor plan or not. That is a big regret people having, because once they start living in a place that is not as functional or doesn't have a floor plan that's as functional as they would like, there's nothing you can do about it. So, personal advice, to each their own. Everybody has sort of their own sort of priorities when it comes to living in this space, but floor plan is the key. The functionality is the key to having a good life at home. Okay. So you can always kind of do the upgrades down the road. I understand not everybody has like, 15, 20K to spend on renovations right after the purchase of home, but that is something you can do down the road. You can budget for it, you can plan for it, you can do it in small increments. But when it comes to something like the floor plan, you can't change that. There's nothing that can change the floor plan. And that's even a bigger cost if it's even like possible. If there's load bearing structure walls all over the place, you can't really do anything about that. But the point is, this is one of the regrets a lot of people have, is that I went for the shiny new object as opposed to practical and nice floor plans. So when you're purchasing a place or when you're looking at a place, floor plan is king. You can always make the changes to the kitchens and the washrooms later. The most important thing within your price range is the most functional and nice floor plan for the home. Third most common sort of regret that a lot of buyers have, especially a lot of first time home buyers, is they kind of went above and beyond what they needed, right? So even though they could have done with a home that's 700,000 or $800,000, because they had been approved for 1.1, they went ahead and purchased their $1.1 million home, even though they didn't need that much space. Reason being, well, for a lot of people, they feel like, real estate is it, right? So if you can afford whatever you can afford, get the highest amount, because down the road, 15, 20 years, 10 years down the road, you'll see a really good return on investment, right? There's nothing like real estate, et cetera, et cetera. There is some truth to that, but at the same time, you have to keep something in mind. You don't want to be what they call house poor, right? And especially for a lot of first-time homebuyers, it's a bit of a shock that yes, I have a place, but so much of my money is kind of going into like my car and my home that I've barely got enough left over to enjoy life, to go on vacations, to maybe invest for my retirement, put something in my kids' education fund. So that's one of the biggest regrets that people have. Look, I've been into like over 1,000 homes, right? We have this uncanny ability to fill the house with stuff. So if you get a bigger home, I've been in kitchens that are massive and I've never come across an empty cupboard. Everything is filled with things. So the bigger home you get, the more you're going to put in there, the more expenses are going to come up. Maybe that's you. Maybe that you have the ability to do that. That's great. But if you're somebody who's starting out or somebody who wants to kind of be fiscally responsible, the best thing to do is buy something that kind of meets your needs, has a functional layout, meets the needs of your family, and then whatever money you have left over, even though you can afford more, you don't use your maximum allowed amount for the mortgage. Use that money towards retirement savings, towards your children's education fund, towards your vacations. Maybe all of that is covered. Use some of it for charity, whatever kind of floats your boat. But this is one of the regrets that a lot of buyers have, that they went ahead full, like the amount that they were allowed, they used all of it up, and they were kind of tight when it came to living their lives. They kind of became house poor. So to avoid that, live within your means. Just because the bank is giving you a big mortgage, you don't have to use all of it, just so you can have room to breathe and live your life other than just paying the mortgage. So we talked about three of the most common sort of regrets that people have when they've purchased a home. A lot of these are first-time home buyers. Obviously, the more you kind of do this, the more seasoned you get in this act of buying and selling real estate. You become smarter, you become wiser, and you make those mistakes less. But those three mistakes are: number one, sort of not budgeting for maintenance items that come up along on top of the cost of owning the home. We talked about kind of going for the shiny object, like just a brand new kitchen over a nice practical floor plan. And then we also talked about kind of using your maximum allowance for a mortgage, and essentially you end up becoming house poor. So tell me and let me know if you found any of these to be something that you kind of regret when you purchased a home. If there's something that was missing from this list, put it in the comment section below. I read all the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.